Okay, could I have your attention? I would like you to be sure to look at Canvas, and you'll notice that there is, and I'll show you, you don't have to look at it now. You'll notice that there is a new folder called Review PDF Files. And what I have there now, I've gone through the first 6 lectures and taken what I feel to be the more highlights. And I will go through, hopefully, today we'll have time to do lectures 1 and 2, and I'll go through it with you, but you also then can refer to the PDF. This also would be useful to print out for the exam, all right? So I'm sort of giving you what you need to print. This is what I hope you will begin to be thinking about in terms of what you need to prepare to bring with you for the exam. Since it is open book, my expectation in grading your exam is that you have full access to what we've covered. So you should be able to refer to it. And when it comes to looking at the text that you analyze, compare with similar texts that we've analyzed in class, and so on. Okay? So now, please keep looking at that one. Now I have lectures 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6. The rest of them I will be compiling and also putting there. Okay? So, but that's what's there for now. Just a quick run through of the key concepts that I do want you to be paying attention to. And this is very relevant to the second part of the exam. Because the second part of the exam is an essay. You have 2 questions and you choose which one you want to answer. That covers the theoretical, it covers the concepts that are being covered in class, okay? So what are the main concepts that I have covered? Just a quick run through. What I'd like to in going through this, and I hope today I will also be able to go through lectures 1 and 2. If you have any questions, then you can come and ask me next week, all right? Think about it, look at it, and think about whether you have any questions or what you would like to see further discussed, all right? The meta functions, that's the obvious one: ideational, interpersonal, textual. The metafunctional being both the experiential and the logical. The kinds of analyses that we've been doing: transitivity, process, participant, circumstance. Logical, parataxis, hypotaxis. Rank shifting, embedding. Mood and modality. Theme, thematic progression. These should be all something you're very familiar with by now, but be paying attention to these, reviewing them. Texture, cohesiveness. What is it? What's cohesion? Architecture. What is the difference between cohesion and coherence? Context of situation, field, tenor, mode. How those parameters give us an idea as to why we use language the way we do in that context of situation. What do we call that variety that is distinguished by its use in a situation? The register, of course. What are the differences between speech and writing? You've seen this in terms of the significance of this point in looking at that court case and the judge's summation of evidence. Taking something that is basically written, speaking it out, reading it, and what's the what goes on then in that written text? What is the grammatical complexity that compares with spoken? What is the lexical density? Those kinds of things. Grammatical metaphor, the language of science. What is metaphor? That's been something we've talked about. And what is it? What is metaphor? It's the opposite, we could say, of the literal. The straightforward, the expected, the default. The metaphorical in terms of lexical, grammatical, like in the language of science, and an extended metaphor, like we see in the text itself, that might be a kind of poetic, a novel, some kind of literature. What is deautomatization? What's foregrounding? Are they alike? Halliday was suggesting that, in fact, deautomatization is the same as foregrounding. The various text types that we've looked at, because you will have a text in part A, first part, that you will need to analyze. Now, I consider it fair game, any text that we've done, which you can then have some basis of comparison with what you have on the exam. You understand what I'm saying? It's important to me when you look at that text and when you analyze it, compare with similar texts that we had discussed in class. Because it's important that, I think it's important that we need to consider a text not as an island off to itself, unrelated to what else is going on in language and other texts of similar type. So how does that text compare? And that's why, again, I go back to that court case. When I was asked, did the judge speak too fast? Well, how could I know unless I compared with similar circumstances, similar situation, what is considered acceptable? What have we looked at? We've looked at poetry, Edwin Tumbu, Robert Frost, Les Murray. We've looked at spoken word, Brandon Lee. We're going to do that today, again. Dramas and plays, The Sunset Limited, Murder on the Orient Express, legal language, academic writing, political speaking. We looked at a number of political figures, Romney, Obama, Nixon, Trump. Motivational speeches, like the commencement speeches of Steve Jobs, Susan Rice. What does Halliday say here? He says what is important is that we should be able to use the same theory, method of linguistic analysis, the same grammatics, whatever kind of text we are trying to interpret, whether Tennyson or Darwin, Mother Goose, or the Scientific American. Otherwise, if we simply approach each text with an ad hoc, do-it-yourself, kit of private commentary, which is exactly what we're trying to avoid here. We're trying to bring a rigorous way to analyze text so that we can, in fact, have a way of explaining their similarities and differences. The aesthetic and functional values that differentiate one text from another, or one voice from another within the frontiers of the same text. That last part, what does that mean? There's similarities and differences, the aesthetic and functional values that differentiate one text from another, or one voice from another within the frontiers of the same text. I'm going to illustrate that today with the case study that I've chosen. And this case study is Brandon Leap. You remember him from America's Got Talent. We looked at one of his before, and this was another of his spoken word performances. Now you have the text in front of you. What we're going to do today is you're going to have first, we begin with the text itself, not broken up into clauses. What I'm going to ask you to do is after you have read this, as you listen to him speak it, I want you, first thing, is to do a clause analysis. I'm going to give you some time to do that. Then when you're done, the reason I've been telling you don't even touch these, all right, is that these are sort of this will be, for example, I will give you the clause analysis, but I want you to do it yourself. And then we will do, like we do with other texts, we will look at theme. And again, I'm going to give you a page that you can use front and back to do the analysis. First, we do the clause analysis. Then we will do each of the separate theme, logical, transitivity. I'll ask you to do the analysis on the worksheet, and then I will give you my solution, my analysis, and we'll go over that. So it's important, though, to me that you try to do it. I know you've been doing it with the analysis that you've done of the academic text. Let's try it on this text. This text is a bit different. It's a spoken word performance. It's not academic text. Well, let's get underway. And let's start and listen to it as you read along, and then you'll do the analysis. Do you get what I was talking about before? Different voices within the same text. These letters, the text itself is a combination representing his different ages, his different emotions. Now, when you're looking at the text, and you haven't heard, suppose you haven't heard it, it's going to be a different impression, but let's go on the basis of what you do have in front of you, the text itself. So I'd like you to spend a few minutes now to go through and how would you analyze the text? Okay, now let's go through it together, and we can see at the beginning it's very simple clauses. What you would expect from someone who is 5 years old, okay? And that's sort of the important here because that is the voice, and that is this letter. We see we've got and. Well, that's easy to connect with and, but otherwise it's quite simple. 10th birthday. Again, still quite simple. My 10th birthday party is next week. And when I woke up this morning, for connects with 4C, the first thing mom said, and mom said is an embedded clause. The first thing mom said, that whole chunk is the subject. And the verb is was. And the complement of the verb to be is another clause. Dang, you look just like your dad. Notice it's not a projected clause. We'll get to that in a moment. But it's not, she said such and such. What she said was, and then we see it as an embedded clause. Carrying on. Maybe that's why my reflection is so unfamiliar sometimes. Well, let's see. Maybe that is, and so 5B again is a complement of the verb to be. It fills that slot, and that slot is a clause, a nominalized clause. Embedded. Anyways, I really hope you can make it to the party this year. I miss you a lot. All right, well, I'll see you at the party, hopefully. Okay, so now we get to 16 years old. And I think we're going to notice it gets a bit more difficult to analyze because it's got to show that emotion. It's got to show that turbulence. And that's going to come through in the text here. Now, let's see. I just turned 16 years old today. And about a week ago, I thought about, now 9C, if it's the preposition, if it's a preposition and what follows it, that clause, again, is functioning like the object of a preposition. So when you see about, of, you see an embedded clause. And about a week ago, I thought about then 9C inviting you to my birthday party this year because all the kids at school always ask, are you going to make it? And I always end up telling them that you're out of town. Anything strike you as difficult here? And not really. The only thing I think might have been was this the object of the preposition, a nominalized clause. What do you notice before we even get to the analysis? You should be noticing that there's a lot of conjunctions. There's a lot of signaling with conjunctions. What are the relations between the clauses? A lot of and, a lot of because. Now, Mama told me 10B, stop. Well, that's a verb, stop. Lying so much, 10C, a separate verb, lying so much. What is he supposed to stop? Lying so much. 11A, but technically you are out of town. Again, the conjunction so, I guess I wasn't really lying. Because, again, because. What's a little half-truth? When you've only ever known half your roots. What's a little half-truth? And then when you've only known half your roots. Continuing, but I'm tired of embedded clause, object of the preposition of. I'm tired of all these sleepless nights. 14A, I'm tired of coming up with excuses for absence. 14, 15, 16, all this is the same. I'm tired of, I'm tired of, I'm tired of. So the structure is the same. Notice the repetition. I mean, already you're looking at the text. You should notice the repetition itself. Okay, 17 is really complicated. So you know what, Dad or Tyrone, whatever the hell you are, I'm done. And then we have because, and then all I ever wanted, that's the subject. Again, it's filling that slot of the grammatical subject. When it fits the subject, it's functioning as the subject, or it's functioning as the object of a preposition or the complement of a verb. It is an embedded clause. It's not functioning as clause 11. It's functioning as like a phrase, like a noun phrase. Because all I ever wanted, subject was, and then the complement for you to acknowledge my existence. 17G, but despite my persistence, I haven't even met resistance, just absence. 17H, and I hate the fact that I still want you here. That I still want you here, modifying fact, the noun. This, I think, was in looking at your clause analyses all along. This was the embedded clauses are the difficult. Because I would notice that some of you would go to one extreme of practically everything was embedded, which is wrong. Even of that clause, I said that, and then that clause considered embedded. No, that's projected. That's why I'm giving you that simple rule. If it follows a noun, treat it as embedded. If it follows a preposition, treat it as embedded. If it follows a verb, consider, is it projected? What is the verb? Is the verb a mental process that can project, or a verbal process? What is one verb where you notice that, in fact, you do have embedding after the verb to be? I don't need you. I never did. This is my last letter to you, Tyrone. Goodbye. Now he's 25 years old. For 25 years, I cried in the pillow sheets, wondering why you left me, wondering what I could have done to have earned your love, or how I pushed you so far away. Your absence, like a flame, found home in the kindling of my insecurities, and my mind became a wildfire, and as I ascended in age, my soul turned a rage. Because all the conjunctions are all the signals. When you get to do the theme analysis, notice that. Because I wanted to move on, but I simply couldn't turn the page, or I didn't want to, because somehow, and then why is 22J? Being angry with you, why is that embedded? Why is it embedded? It's because it's the subject. Again. Being angry with you, that's the grammatical subject, still made me feel close to you. And despite our lack of history, Tyrone, I've come to learn that pain, like secrets, can only control you if you hold them within. And now, this is another thing I want you to notice. When we get to talking about this, we get to discussing this, what makes this a kind of performance art? That's what you have to ask that question when you consider the analysis. Why is it performance art? And what you should be noticing as you go through it, where are the repetitions? You notice that you have long, lengthy, complex sentences, and then very brief. I forgive you. I forgive you. I forgive you. They're repetition. So I can finally be free. No longer shackled to my misery because the situation is so much bigger than you and me. Simple. This right here is generational healing because I'm getting married soon, and I want our first chapter together to be started off on the right page with you by my side as I marry my bride. Again, these are simple because I love you and I actually lead in. So And the final one is a simple clause with embedded. What I'd like you to do is to take this worksheet. Now it has a front and back, all right? So what I'd like, I'm going to just do this here. I think you may need 2 sheets. I've prepared enough so each person has 2 sheets, front and back, all right? Okay, let's take a look at the theme analysis. My 5th birthday party. And I've highlighted in green what is textual, and blue is interpersonal. This year, and 1C, I do, because it's asking a question, so I would consider it like interpersonal. You, topical. Well, textual. My 10th birthday party. And when I is topical. The first thing Mom said with the embedded clause, which is modifying thing. So the whole thing, the subject as theme. Notice I'm not analyzing what's within the embedded clauses. Why don't I do that? Well, because we're considering what's in an embedded clause is not really functioning at clause level. It's basically functioning like a noun phrase. Maybe, I would take maybe, indicating possibility, interpersonal, that. And here that is not the conjunction that, but referring to what is in 5B. Anyways, again, sort of it's an attitude. Anyways, not like not caring. Interpersonal. 6B, obvious you. 7, I. All right, indicating agreement. I would take it's interpersonal. Again, it's what's interpersonal? What indicates modality? Modality is possibility, what happens usually, probability, but it's the attitude also. What one is expressing in terms of it's how you feel about something. Well, again, textual. Next letter. I, topical theme, and about a week ago, I was looking at one of your classmates' analyses, theme analyses. And one thing I noticed was that whenever they came to something like this, basically like a prepositional phrase, they ignored it. But what is it? It's circumstance. So it's part of that ideational theme. It's that first experiential element. Now I grayed out what we call the displaced theme, right? Because when you put the circumstance there ahead of the subject, it's in a way marked because it's not where you would expect it. 9C is embedded. Anyways, it's a non-finite clause. 9D, because all the kids at school. Are you going to make it R is interpersonal? And telling them 9G, I don't analyze because it's a non-finite clause, ing verb. That. And again, this would be a projected that clause. You. Now, I would take time as well, circumstance. Mama as displaced theme. Stop. 10C, I really shouldn't have analyzed that. It's an ing verb. I was getting carried away. But technically, well, this is a way of how you're talking about it technically. So I take that as a circumstance. You is displaced theme. So textual. I. Because now the what's I sort of those WH words that indicate a question. Okay. In a way, it's somewhat interpersonal. It's also topical. So also in a way ideational. If I were putting it in the columns, I should put it in both columns. When textual, you. But, and then again, we see a similarity here in 12 through 16. Not only I'm tired, but it's the repetition. I. It's one of the things that we should note later. Again, nothing really surprising here. I did put whatever the hell, I put that as the topical theme. You displaced. The textual, so, because, and 17E, all I ever wanted, it's the subject is theme. The whole clause then is theme. The whole embedded clause, because it's the subject, it's theme. Despite my persistence, circumstance, I is displaced. These are straightforward. The rest embedded. I don't need you. I never did this. That's my last letter. Again, for 25 years, circumstance. Now, I should have put as displaced. I don't know if I did. Did I put that in the table? The I should be grayed out as displaced. Wonder why? What? I took both of these as not questions, not interpersonal, but instead the WH word as in a way like a relative pronoun standing in for and modifying then what preceded it, wondering why, wondering what. I could have done what, you left me, why. So topical ideation. Or how, I pushed you away. I mean, it's the same structure as we see. Why, what, how. Not a question. Your absence like a flame, ideational, topical, textual, and textual are obvious. Tyrone, interpersonal. Despite our lack of history, circumstance, the I is displaced. Because somehow as like a circumstance, the ideational, so the being angry with you, the subject is a displaced theme. Again, so, just so, so, because, textual. This, because, again, these are very straightforward. Because Tyrone addressing Tyrone, his father, for the first time ever, circumstance as theme, should have put this as displaced. Will you, either will, because it's the modal put in the beginning, which is modal auxiliary, which is expressing the question. Any questions from this? Okay, so I've given you the theme analysis. Transitivity. Okay, let's take a look at the transitivity analysis. I think you can guess what I highlighted in yellow. Material doing process. Green is mental. Think. I'm getting an ice cream I like. Do you like? Like is mental. Save you, save. 10th birthday party is next week. Woke up this morning. Mom said, what I grayed out here was the verbal process. Was the verb to be. You look just like your dad. That's the S is the verb to be is. Hope. I don't think there should be any disagreement about can make it is doing. Miss. See. Mental. Turned 16 years old today. Doing material. Thought. Inviting material. Ask. Telling, obviously, both verbal. Told me, verbal. Stop, lying. You are, verb to be. Guess. Lying is doing. What is a half-truth, verb to be. Ever known, know, is mental. I'm, okay, the verb to be, obviously, sticking up, coming up, trying to reform. Consider mental, to be. Relational, it wasn't my birthright. Trying to earn, being called, all obviously doing. No, mental, are, verb to be. To acknowledge, again, verbal, saying. Met, doing, hate, want. Being caught, alleviates both doing. Need you, did, I never did because it refers back to need. This is my last letter, verb to be. Wondering, mental. The rest are very obviously material. Cried in the pillow sheets. I took it as verbal. Found home, became a wildfire, verb to be, being angry. Wanted, feel, learn as mental. Verb to be, and forgive, I take to be, I took it as a doing process, like when you do, you forgive someone. Verb to be, and nothing surprising here. The last one, I got something in the sense of have, you possess, so relational. Okay, then looking at the analysis. One thing that we've done for almost all the texts, it's been to sort of add up how many relational, how many doing, sensing, saying. And in total, I mean, the only thing that I thought it wasn't, the only interesting aspect here was the first person I, as opposed to everything else. How much of it was I? And of course, 85% is what I, the author, the reader, the one doing it, feels. So most of it is about I, and 63% of everything is about the first person. Okay, let's do the logical analysis. I hope you find this useful. This will be the last time that we'll be doing a text analysis. And so I hope that I hope you find it useful. This is the most challenging part, right? In terms of how to do the analysis. Especially when we get into the letters 3 and 4, then it becomes very complicated, which fits the sense of what we are feeling. By this point, when we've analyzed the theme and we've analyzed transitivity, do we feel that we are coming to any observations that we can make about what we see? Well, once we've seen the analysis, and that's why when you look at the analysis in front of you, that it can sort of give you an overview. But if this is a performance, then we should be looking for what? Not just what occurs very frequently. That's the background. The background is a very first person speaking to his father, right? So it's I throughout. When you look at transitivity, we counted, all right? We counted how many I was doing and sensing and so forth. But did anything stand out to us? You know, sometimes you have to sort of dig deep in it. I'd like you to take a look at your transitivity analysis. Do you see anything besides the counting that I did a moment ago and showed you? Let me go back to that. What process type occurs the least? The same. Okay, I'd like you to go back now. Look at those transitivity analysis. Who is doing the speaking? Who is doing the saying? Do you notice anything? Mom said, all the kids at school asked. No. I end up telling not who, he's telling his classmates, all right? Mama told. Not him, and it's other people talking, all right? So we notice that, and then when you get to 17, F, you acknowledge. That's what he's seeking, is his father's acknowledgement that he is his father's son. But I want you to turn over to the end. Only twice does he speak. And he's speaking to his father. I tell you what? What does he tell his father? I forgive you. I forgive you. And say, and what does he say? I love you. Out of all of this, I think that what he's drawing the attention to is the resolution that it comes to. When he can say to his father, I forgive you. I love you. All the other speaking is not from him, and it only comes at the very end. Now that's the kind of thing you're looking for. That's the foregrounding. That's what is supposed to capture your attention. Let's take a look now at the clause analysis. And again, we're still wanting to see what will get our focus. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight from the text. And so I know this part is, so you have it in front of you. You can take a look at it. You can't see it very clearly on the screen. The 1A, B and C, and B and C, I think I'm getting an ice cream cake. It's a projection. 2 and 3 are simple. Well, that stands out. So that's one thing. We can see the letter, first letter. We already noticed that it's much simpler when we did the clause analysis. Letter 2. Again, it's still quite simple, and then we have when. So when is in the enhancement clause, and it's the beta. When I woke up this morning, 4C and embedded D and E, the first thing mom said was, dang, you look just like your dad. 9. Okay, we're up to letter 3 now. Very important to keep track of what letter, because these are different voices, different times in his life that he's going back to. The simplicity of him at 5, the simplicity of him at 10. Now he's beginning to grow up. 16, he's a teenager. Okay, and 9B, 9A. So we have 9A followed by 9B through H, all right? So all of this, I just turned 16 years old today, and then everything that follows here, basically, up through H. The because, 9D, all right? So between B and C, and about a week ago, I thought about inviting you, to my birthday party this year, 9D, because, and then all the kids always ask, are you, et cetera, up through that. They ask, it's a projection, are you going to make it? All the kids at school always ask, are you going to make it? Nine D and E, all the kids that always ask, are you going to make it? And then this is 9F, again through the N, always end up telling them, etc. 9F and G, this is a kind of elaboration, the ing. Whenever you see an ing, verb ing clause, you've probably got elaboration, all right? Hypotactic elaboration, telling them, and then we have that obvious projection at the end, G and H. Honestly, I'd never be able to figure out the logical structure of these sentences, and we get to worse, all right? If I didn't go through and take each of the conjunctions here to begin with, and identify the conjunctions as a way, because that's what's connecting up the clauses. 10, Mama told me, that's a projection. I took it as a direct speech. Stop, that would be his mom speaking. Stop lying so much. Stop lying, I take it as, again, they have ing. This is a kind of elaboration. What's he to stop? Lying. 11A and B through E, but technically you are out of town, so of course would be enhancement, hypotactic enhancement. So I guess, and that's a kind of projection, guess we take as a verbal process. Again, indirect speech, 11B, and then C through E. I wasn't really lying, 9D, C, cause, enhancement. D and E, when you've only ever known half your roots. Okay, 12 through 16, simple. They're all simple or with embedding. Now that has to strike us, okay? That has to be something we take note of. Because everything else has been laid out with conjunctions. This one is repetitive, and it is also the same kind of pattern, repeating, I'm tired of, I'm tired of, I'm tired of. That's foregrounded very clearly. 17. I took 17A and B as a kind of elaboration, paratactic elaboration. It's like a sequence, so you know what, Dad or Tyrone, whatever the hell you are. That is sort of both are equal grammatically, so a sequence. A and B. So you know what, Dad or Tyrone, whatever the hell you are, I'm done. And we'll carry on with because, etc., through to the end of this part here. 17C, because all I ever wanted was for you to acknowledge my existence. C, I'm done because, all right. 17G, all of this here, because all I ever wanted was for you to acknowledge my existence, but. Again, the but would be paratactic elaboration. Okay, back down here, A through G, all of this, and then 17H, and paratactic elaboration. But I'm done. Being, again, is a kind of hypotactic elaboration. I took it as paratactic elaboration here, but this part here, you could have also said that it was paratactic extension. Okay, and but so forth. And if you did so, that would be fine. Okay. It could have all been within this column here, but it's all obviously paratactic nonetheless. 18, 19, 20, again. I don't need you. I never did. This is my last letter to you, Tyrone. Goodbye. All right, again. I think it's just playing off this complex combination of clauses with all the conjunctions laid up against, foregrounded against these simple, no embedding, simple clauses. 21. Wondering, A. For 25 years, I cried in pillow sheets, wondering, this is elaboration, ing verb. Wondering why you left me, I took it as a hypotactic rejection. I took B and C, wondering why you left me, and then repeating it, wondering what I could have done. That repetition as a kind of sequence. So I took it as a paratactic extension of these two constructions. But wondering what would also be, again, a kind of hypotactic projection. What I could have done to have earned your love, purpose, so enhancement. Or how, EF, what I could have done to have earned your love, or I'm taking a paratactic extension. Now 22. 22 is very, very complicated. It's this point where you remember he is speaking, and he's speaking fast, and he's emotional. 22A and B, and A, B, and C, and again, extension. 22D and what's that? C. As, okay, C is the beta of the hypotactic. As I ascended in age, D, my soul turned to rage. Because, okay, as I ascended in age, my soul turned to rage because, and then E through the rest of it. Because I wanted to move on. To move on, I've taken as what he wanted to elaboration, elaborating what he wanted. But paratactic extension. or, again, paratactic extension, H. But I simply couldn't turn the page or didn't want to because enhancement, elaboration still made me, what did it made him feel close to you? Hypotactic elaboration, paratactic extension, and enhancement. I've come to learn. Purpose. Projection, to learn that pain, like secrets, can only control you. Finally, if you hold them within enhancement. 23, A and B, so enhancement. 26A, so enhancement. No longer shackled to my misery. Again, another linking of two clauses. Both of them are freestanding. Hypotactic enhancement because, and on our first chapter together, to be, I took it as elaboration, to be how it would begin. As I marry my bride, as a kind of enhancement. 28A, because Tyrone, for the first time ever, I can say, I love you, projection. And actually mean it, A, B, and C. So that's it. Take a minute to look at the clause analysis. Now we can do one thing, and that would be straightforward, counting. And I counted in terms of the letters, 1, 2, 3, and 4 letters. Simple. Okay, we notice that there's the first letter, we have 2 simple, some hypotaxis. Letter 2, we have a bit more hypotaxis. Letter 3, we have a bit more parataxis. And letter 4, we notice that there is a great deal more parataxis. He's grown up. He's not writing as an adult. Okay, what stood out to me, I've already mentioned this, about how this I'm tired of, that stands out as being, particularly when it is up against what you see in the preceding and following, which has a lot of conjunctions, a lot of combinations. These stand out. So what we just saw, and then 17 has quite a bit of conjunctions and quite a bit of, again, a kind of, but a lot of parataxis, as we notice here. Likewise, when he says, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you. Again, the simplicity of that stands out, is foreground. The point to take is that you have to look at all 3 kinds of analyses together. All 3, in a way, obviously relate in the sense that when you look at theme and you see a lot of texture, a lot of conjunctions, well, that means you're going to have a lot of taxis relations then. You're going to have a lot of clause complexity. And that's indicated by the use of the conjunctions. When we're looking at this kind of text, though, it's different than when you're looking at your like IELTS essays. Your IELTS essays are not written to be creative. They're not written to be the background in which you are the writer's foregrounding something. No. You have to take into account the nature of the text itself and address that. To what extent was this performance art? Where was the art? And it's not just in the speaking. What we're looking at it here is in terms of the text itself. A whole nother dimension is his voice quality. When he starts off almost like a kid, and then when he gets to, if you'll notice, the partner, he's 16, and you'll notice that his whole inflection changes. I'd like if we could just, I'd like to listen to it again, this time keeping in mind what we've been looking at. I wasn't going to replay it again, but I really think it would be helpful to us to understand it.
Hey, Dad. My 5th birthday party is coming up, and this year I think I'm getting an ice cream. You like ice cream cake? Well, I'll save you a slice. Love you, Brandon. Hey, Dad. My 10th birthday party is next week, and I woke up this morning. The first thing Mom said was, "Dang, you look just like your dad." Maybe that's why my reflection is so familiar. Anyway, I really hope you can make it to the party this week. I miss you a lot. All right, well, I'll see you at the party. Hopefully. Sincerely, Brandon. Hey, Tyrone. I just turned 16 years old today, and about a week ago, I thought about inviting you to my birthday party this year because all the kids at school always ask, "Are you going to make it?" And I always end up telling them that you're out of town. Now, Mama told me stop lying so much, but technically you are out of town, so I guess I wasn't really lying because what's a little half-truth when you've only ever known half your roots, but I'm tired of singing up with you. I'm tired of all these sleepless nights. I'm tired of coming up with excuses for your absence. I'm tired of trying to reform my self-image into something that you would consider to be beautiful. I'm tired of trying to earn the title of being called your son as if it wasn't my birthright. So you know what, Dad, or Tyrone, whatever the hell you are, I'm done. Because all I ever wanted was you to acknowledge my existence. But despite my persistence, I didn't even met resistance, just absence. And I hate the fact that I still want you here. But I'm done being part of this delusion. The idea that you, a mirage, could alleviate my confusion. I don't need you. Never did. This is my last letter to you, Tyrone. Goodbye. Dear Tyrone, 25 years I cried in the pillow sheets, wondering why you left. Wondering what I could have done to have earned your love, or how I pushed you so far away. Your absence, like a flame, found home, the kindling of my insecurities. My mind became a wildfire. And as I ascended in age, my soul turned to rage. I wanted to move on, but simply couldn't turn the page. I didn't want to. Somehow being angered still made me feel close. Despite our lack of history, Tyrone, I've come to learn that pain, like secrets, can only control you, hold them within. So I laid down before at the altar of Christ just so I can tell you this. I forgive you. I forgive you. I forgive you so I can finally be free. No longer shackled to my misery, because this situation is so much bigger than you and me. This right here is generational healing because I'm getting married soon. And I want our first chapter together to be started off on the right page with you by my side as I marry my bride, Miss Tyrone. For the first time ever, I can honestly say, I love you. And I actually mean it. So will you be there? My biggest day ever. Still, his son, Brandon. Oh. Hey, Tyrone. I got something I'd like to read to you.
If you know where I'm going with this, if you had seen this on anything, you of course would have compared it with the text that you had already encountered of his. That's why I'm saying you do not look at the text that you will see on your exam as an island that is completely unrelated to anything you've ever seen before. Care, all right? And I said this when I taught this course before, and for some reason, some students just don't get it. They don't realize that they're supposed to. They have it in front of them, and you'd expect that they want to compare that text with what they've seen before. Because when we look at, okay, let's take a look. This was his another.
What is your name?
My name is Brandon Lee.
Hi, Brandon Lee. And where are you from, Brandon?
I am from a small little city called Stockton, California.
Stockton, California. And what do you do for a living?
For a living, I work in a high school and a college, but I also run poetry workshops with youth in my city.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So poetry, is that what you're going to be doing tonight?
Yes, I'm actually the first spoken word artist that you guys are ever going to have hit the stage. So I'm super excited to bring poetry to y'all.
Tell me, because I don't really understand poetry. I'm going to be honest.
I'm a great intro for you. I bring more about life experience, things that everyday people go through.
And where could this lead to if you do well on the show, Brandon?
Well, I have like a huge aspiration of being able to put on my own large production one-man show.
Okay, so tonight's poem, is it something you wrote?
Oh, I only perform stuff that I write, never be able to perform anything else.
And what is it? What is this one about?
So tonight's poem is actually an ode to my sister.
Are you close to your sister?
Very much. She's here with me now.
Oh, she's backstage.
Kind of.
Well, we already love you. Make us love your poem.
Beautiful. I got you for that. I have two back feet. One, I'm 6 feet tall. And two, love is the most vulnerable thing one will ever have. And you must learn to hold on to it loosely, so when it leaves, it won't exit so painfully. On July 14th, 1996, an angel was brought to this earth. Her name, Danielle Marie Gibson, but I only know her as Puck. Her smile is as wide as the universe. Her eyes, they glimmer like the stars. She is my world and my sister. I, just 4 years old at the time, learned what it meant to love selflessly for days on which my strength was but knee-high, seeing her smiling face would make my soul fly. But on March 23rd, 1997, I've been brown-bound because she left Earth to go back home amongst the stars, right next to God, but I was left here to manufacture wings out of tears and broken dreams, yet I'm still haunted by these nightmares because I have a really creative mind. And sometimes it designs these alternate realities where she is still here, still alive, and all the things I wish we could have done, I played again and again and again, and I'm tired of playing God because I gotta come to terms with the fact that my sister ain't never coming back. And that's the cost of love. Caring for someone so much that you can't imagine living life without them, staring at a grave like, how about I trade my 6 feet for yours? That's not real. And I know I said earlier to hold on to love loosely, so when it leaves, it won't exit so painfully. But this pain and these memories are all that I got left of you. I won't never regret these scars. I'm just trying to hold on.
When we looked at that text before, It had an architecture. It begins, and we see this use of simple clauses at the beginning, not much unlike what we've just been looking at. The repeated use of and as a conjunction. There is here, however, rhyme, loosely, painfully. He switches from being talking about himself to talking about his sister. His sister becomes the theme. And again, there's still simple clauses, and again, there's rhyme. But then he shifts his attention to himself. Simple clauses, rhyme, still there, yes, but then we get but. And right away it shifts, and we notice that again, there are occasional embedding, there's conjunction. That's what's at the beginning, but then when we get to this point where but marks this turning point, where we suddenly realize that his sister isn't living, and the emotion then starts to come through. And it shifts from active voice to passive voice. Because what? He is no longer in control. He is no longer the one who initiates. It's from outside him. He's been ground bound because she left her to go back home amongst the stars. I was left. He was left. All of this is in passive voice. One thing we noticed in that text was the number of content words in each sentence. And it highlights at that point where he's really talking about his emotions, about his sister's passing. And he switches from being just about parataxis to that we begin to see the hypotaxis. You can't do this if you were looking at a text. I could because I had the tape to the audio to listen to. Increased use of hypotaxis, parataxis. The repetition at the beginning and at the end, sort of in a way seeming to come full circle. But what I noticed was where there was rhyme and there was simple clauses, there was parataxis, all of that changed at that point. These are the things you are looking for. The logical relations, parataxis, hypotaxis. Other things that you also need to pay attention to in a text would be tense, active versus passive. You're looking at the text and do not just focus on the theme and logical and transitivity. Those are meant to help you, but can I make one point that I want you to be sure to do? When you do the exam, read the text. Before you start looking at the analysis tables, read the text. Familiarize yourself with what it's about. Think about, frame it within the context in which it is being used. That will help you to be able to pay attention to, first of all, how it compares with texts that are similar and meets your expectations. Let me start by going through, I'm going to be doing this over the next 3 lectures. I'll go through the slides that I have put aside for you in terms of the lectures. We began by asking who is N.A.K. Halliday. You should know who he is. Who is he? Pioneered the development of system of functional linguistics. Something about his background, one thing that perhaps has been influential in why systemic functional linguistics does not represent the mainstream of linguistics. When I was a student in a university studying linguistics, I've told you before, I never heard of Halliday. Halliday, systemic functional linguistics, it's not popular, especially in North America. Why that is, I don't know, except perhaps it was his Marxist background that kept him from being able to have a profile. All right. But that influence that being in China, studying under Wang Li, I think that had a very strong impression on him. We distinguish Halliday from who? Chomsky. I mean, they're the opposites. Chomsky talked about there being an innate competence, logically well ordered. So you'll notice that mainstream linguistics and those that do syntax are mainly concerned with what is the logical, and is it grammatical? That's the question of ask. What about grammaticality? Because they assume that language is logically well ordered, when in fact, we can see that there is a lot of inherent fuzziness in language. And what have we said before? Language is not logical, it is analogical. We speak as we have been spoken to. Speak as we have been spoken to. How do we learn language? We learn language not from what's here. We learn language from being exposed to language. And so we speak as we've been spoken to. We resemble what we have heard. The influences I've mentioned, Wang Li taught Halliday grammar, phonology, history of Chinese linguistics. No doubt that played an important role in Halliday's own approach to linguistics. J.R. Firth, his other great teacher. What is Firth famous for? Register. Describing register in terms of what? Field, tenor, mode. That's the influence that Firth had on Halliday. Context of situation, context. Describing the context in terms of those three parameters, field, tenor, mode. Halliday's background with a Communist Party linguistics group. He always was influenced by that. It's one of the things that drove the feeling that he had that language should be a bio. He should have an application. When he came back to Britain and he became part of this Communist Party linguistics group, there was a pressure on him to become more involved in political activities. Instead, he chose to focus on linguistics, believing that with his linguistics, he could have an impact on society. And today, what is mainstream linguistics largely focusing on? It largely focuses on what is the standard variety, what is grammatical, what is formal, what's the dominant, what's the majority. But that influence of that Communist Party linguistics group was to question this idea of what language should be, and realizing that if you focus here and all your priority is there, that will influence what you think language is. And that's truly why I can see Chomsky's approach, and much of mainstream linguistics is focused on what is grammatical, rather than opening us up to take a look at other aspects of language. that would be discoverable if we were looking at spoken language, modern language, colloquial language, everyday language. Halliday said we wanted to give value to languages and varieties of language that were usually regarded as of little value, often ignored altogether. Minority languages, unwritten languages, spoken languages, especially casual speech. Halliday was very much influenced by this sociologist, Basil Bernstein, which brings in the whole idea of what is called social semiotics, looking at the influence of society. His wife, Ruqayya Hassan, he worked with her on a very famous, well-known book, Cohesion. Cohesion in English. So I wanted you to have a background in who is Halliday, how his influences shaped his own approach to the study of language. And what is systemic functional linguistics? Not systematic. Please remember that. It's systemic. What is systemic? What does it mean? What kind of systems are we talking about? We're talking about systems of choice. Semantic options. Okay, what are our options? When we're talking about the system of transitivity, what are our options? The process, the choice of process, the process type, participants, who's in the ER role, who's in the ED role. Are circumstances a part of this? These are choices, and they will influence the way that the text turns out. These options, these semantic options, are the total meaning potential that there is in language. And these also relate then to what role does language play? What does it perform? What are its functions? I began today with the key word metafunctions. What are the metafunctions? Ideation, interpersonal, textual. Those now I'm sure you're so familiar with. They are the metafunctions. Why are they metafunctions? Because every language has them. There can be no language that doesn't perform these functions. What functions? To express ideas, to enact social relationships, to create the text. Those are choices of meaning, and there are choices then of how that meaning is realized. I just mentioned the system of transitivity. What are the various questions that one can ask to determine what process type? Why is this important? Because the process types, how are they distinguished? They are distinguished not just on the basis of meaning. If you distinguish the process types solely on the basis of meaning, there would be no end. There would be no end to the distinctions that can be made, because every verb means something different. So how can you classify them as doing, material, mental, sensing, relational? On what basis? What basis? Grammar. What do we mean by grammar? We mean questions like this. What did X do? What did X do to Y? Can you ask those questions? If you can, you have a material process. You have a mental process. You can't ask what did X do when it is a mental process, right? And so that is an aspect of the grammar. So we distinguished the process types, the roles of participants. We saw how this played out in two examples. Donald Jung's speech, where material processes were largely done by things. Susan Rice's commencement speech, where it's people doing. Two different ideologies, two different perspectives, both influencing the way they speak. Choices that they're making in language. What is language? Language is not just a semiotic system, it makes meaning, it defines us. And the way in which we can think about meaning is thinking about meaning means thinking mad. What does that mean? Just like what we talked about here, how do you distinguish the process? Not just in terms of meaning, but in terms of how they behave the matter. So meaning is realized in the wording and choices that we make. So there are the uses of language. The uses of functions of language define certain types of situations in which language is used. These feed into the metafunctions, choices that we have about interpersonal textual ideation. And all of this then can be captured how? With a system network. What is a system network? A system network represents the choices that we make. And choices. So, for example, when you're speaking, it is always going to be ideational, interpersonal, textual. Choices of process, which kind of process type? Mood, is it going to be making a statement, indicative? Is it imperative? Is it interrogative or declarative? What is the choice of theme? What do you put first? Do you put a circumstance? Do you displace the subject? These are all considerations. But they're not just, so it's a combination of and choices, or choices. Explaining the inspiration behind representing the whole thing as potential as a set of options, which is really what a system network is all about. Halliday said that this was certainly influenced by my own gut feeling of what I call language as a resource. In other words, language was a mode of life, if you like, which could be represented best as a huge network of options. So that kind of came together with the notion that it had to be the system rather than the structure that was given priority. The system, the choices. Functional. Systemic. It's functional. This goes back to Carl Buehler, the expressive, the cognitive, the representational function. We traced what was the development of Halliday's own thinking about the functions of language. Again, Roman Jakobson's taking what was Buehler's expressive, cognitive, representational, and adding on to it. When Halliday began to look at language, he began by looking at the language child, his son, looking at how language developed, and he identified the functions that that child's use of language performed. He called them the microfunctions. Indicated by gesture, indicated by voice. He noticed, though, that when as a child grew up, the child began to sort of distinguish between two large, mainly whether it was pragmatic demanding, or whether it was synthetic, describing. Notice that it was indicated by a difference in intonation, voice quality. So that there was a special intonation, high fall, mid-level falling, or whether it was rising, indicating whether it was simply describing something or demanding something. The intonation, language was taking shape in the sense that meaning was being related to how it was expressed. The macro functions. The pragmatic, Halliday later developed into the idea of the interpersonal. The methodic into the experiential, to which he added the logical. The ideational, the interpersonal, and to this he added a third function, the textual. Why is the textual necessary? What does the textual do? Usually when we think of language, it is to express ideas or to relate to others. But how does language actually turn into discourse? How does it turn into text? This is the third meta function. We looked at the discussion that was about texting. Halliday objecting that it reduces discourse to bite-sized chunks, as opposed to the Porter's idea of it being an expansion of the linguistic repertoire of young people. The point that was being made was if we rely less and less on the resources for expressing textual meaning, producing cohesive, coherent texts, if we prioritize the interpersonal, question would be what impact will that have on our ability to make textual meaning?